Well, right now in your news at 6, the future of the Cape Fear Serpentarium after the owner is killed. His wife charged and their 3-year-old goes to social services. Plus, some unexpected wildlife is spotted in Carolina Beach, how the furry visitor may have gotten there in the first place, and why the U.S. Supreme Court will not weigh in on North Carolina's voter ID law. But now, Scott, let's send it over to you for weather.
All right, lots of sunshine out there. A few scattered clouds as we're looking across the Cape Fear River towards the battleship. Live data coming in. You see we drop back down to 84, a high of 87. A little bit cooler than surrounding stations where it made it up to 90 degrees. Wilmington over towards Southport. It does look like that humidity is going to start to come up. I'll let you know if that means showers are on the way in just a bit. WWAY News at 6 starts right now.
Live, local, interactive. You're watching WWAY News at 6.
Thanks for joining us tonight for your news at 6. I'm Amanda Fitzpatrick.
And I'm Daniel Siemens. There are new details involving the owner of the Cape Fear Serpentarium who was shot and killed over the weekend.
His wife, Regina Ripa, is charged with his murder. WWAY anchor Hannah Patrick has more from the district attorney about what will happen to the animals and the couple's 3-year-old son as the investigation continues. It is the big story at 6.
After Wilmington police found Cape Fear Serpentarium owner Dean Ripa shot to death in his apartment, District Attorney Ben David says his wife now sits in jail.
Regina Ripa is in custody right now with no bond, charged with first-degree murder.
This would be the 8th domestic-related death in New Hanover County in the last 3 months.
This has been a tough year when you look in our community for the issue of domestic violence.
There's no word yet on a possible motive. Wilmington police say they have not responded to any domestic violence calls to the couple's home. David says the Ripas have a 3-year-old son and, of course, the Serpentarium.
I think everyone is united in making sure that there's no other collateral damage, first to a child and second to all these pets.
David says the toddler has been taken to social services. And as for the reptiles,
if there are dogs or cats or other animals, you always want to make sure that there's a plan in place for them. This brought up a unique circumstance in that when you're talking about bushmasters and asps and boa constrictors, you've got something that's a little different.
He says the aquarium has offered to help, but in the meantime, Ripa's friends have taken over.
It's like a clockwork, it's like a machine. We're going to keep it open, especially, in his memory.
I'm very glad that some of Mr. Ripa's friends who are conversant with how to take care of these creatures are stepping up to help.
In Wilmington, Hannah Patrick, WWAY News.
David says Ripa's wife will not be given a bond until prosecutors determine if this is a capital murder case.
The Hells Angel member charged with stabbing 2 men and shooting one of them is now charged with first-degree murder. It's a story you saw first on WWAY Online. Last week, a grand jury indicted Aaron Stevens on a new attempted murder charge and an upgraded charge of first-degree murder. Stevens was originally charged with second-degree murder in the death of Terry Greenwood, but the DA's office says the investigation led to the upgraded charge. Stevens' bond is now set at $4.5 million.
A supply man is in the Brunswick County Detention Center accused of sex crimes involving a child. 42-year-old Jonathan Edward McClellan is charged with indecent liberties with a child. This according to the arrest warrant. The alleged crime took place on Friday and involved a minor under the age of 16. McClellan was arrested Saturday. He was placed in jail under a $750,000 bond.
North Carolina's Republican legislative leaders say they are going to try again after the U.S. Supreme Court refused to hear their appeal to reinstate a 2013 law mandating photo ID and other voting restrictions. Senate Leader Phil Berger and House Speaker Tim Moore said today that North Carolina residents can bet that GOP lawmakers will keep fighting. The leaders of the Republican-dominated General Assembly want to implement what they call a, quote, common sense requirement to show a photo ID when voting. More than 30 states have some kind of voter ID law in place.
The Coast Guard rescued 2 people who swam to Masonboro Island after their 27-foot boat struck the jetties and started taking on water. This is all according to their news release. Well, Coast Guard Station Wrightsville Beach received a report from New Hanover County Emergency Dispatch about the stranded boaters just last night. Well, the Coast Guard launched a crew who rescued the boaters and took them to awaiting EMS.
It's pretty typical to see a variety of wildlife on Pleasure Island. You've got birds, deer, raccoons, all kind of critters that you'll likely come across. But what about a black bear? WWAY's Helen Holt spoke with Carolina Beach residents about what they thought when one appeared in their neighborhood over the weekend.
There's been a variety of wild animals around, but a bear, nobody's seen a bear down here.
That was until Sunday. Donna Johnston captured this photo of a young black bear just casually walking down Canal Drive, something only a few people saw firsthand, but what many are getting wind of.
I had my doubts, but then once I saw the picture, it was astonishing.
That's unbelievable that there's a bear in here, and I'm going to be a lot more careful walking around at night. And like you said, they were here in the morning, so when I'm out on my strolls, I'm going to be looking for a bear.
Chris Kent with the North Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission says bears will come out of hibernation in the spring and are typically looking for food.
There's not a lot of natural food sources on the landscape. The berries aren't ripe yet. Agricultural crops, corn, soybeans, things like that aren't ripe yet. So if they're hungry, they're looking for an easy food source.
An easy food source like your trash can. Kent says make sure it's secured.
I'm going to keep my eyes open.
And for those wondering, where's Mama Bear? Well, it's likely she's not around.
Those bears would have recently separated from their mothers. It's their first season on their own. Finding food is a little more challenging for them, and they're just trying to find their way in life, essentially.
Bears are known to be great swimmers, so Ken says it could have swam across Snow's Cut or the Cape Fear River.
A bear is pretty unusual. I mean, it could come from the state park or whatever, but I'm going to walk on the beach side and not the bay side.
In Carolina Beach, Helen Holt, WWAY News.
Everyone in the studio thinks he was headed for Britt's Donuts. Carolina Beach police do say that they did respond after receiving multiple reports of a bear sighting, but they did not see one while they were patrolling the area. And then Kent went on to say that if you come across a bear, make sure to stay away and never feed it.
Some things you shouldn't even say, but that's very good advice, Daniel. All right, well, it's the Wild Wild West, and we're just trying to rein it in. That's what one city councilman had to say this morning as the short-term rental debate continues in Wilmington. After discussions with both city council and the public, council was presented with another set of revised regulations for rentals within the city. The biggest change deals with whole house rentals. Some members believe they should be banned altogether, while others think Wilmington needs to go along with the times and allow them. Council is also concerned with who can rent out their homes.
Hosted homestay would require a resident on site during the time of the rental. And so we do have some issues about who can be a resident, what makes you a permanent resident, what makes you a transient resident. So I think they want a more clear definition of what a permanent resident is.
Today's outline, along with council's comments, now heads to Planning Commission, who will draft a proposed ordinance for council.
Friends and family gathered together this weekend. They were raising money and awareness about the life of a little girl here in Wilmington.
And after more than a decade of service, the North Carolina NAACP chapter president is stepping down. He speaks on the direction he's headed in now.
Details in just a bit, guys.
Thank you, Scott. The North Carolina chapter president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People plans to step down.
That's right. Reverend William Barber spoke today about his future, but he says his fight is not over as wants to follow in the footsteps of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others. Barber has been the president of the NAACP's North Carolina chapter for 12 years, and he will step down in June. Now, he originally broke the news of his departure last week. The 53-year-old Reverend plans to concentrate on a, quote, poor people's campaign. He plans to organize the campaign in 25 states and Washington, D.C. The Poor People's Campaign, or also known as Poor People's March on Washington, was originally organized by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in 1968 before he was murdered.
And together, we will help form this campaign and call in the shadow of Dr. King and others' vision, breathing new fire and energy into the torch of justice that was knocked from his hands by the forces of hatred, violence, racism, and arrogance in Memphis, April of 1968.
Though he will be taking on this new campaign, Barber plans to stay on the NAACP's National Board of Directors while continuing his work as a pastor for Greenleaf Christian Church in Goldsboro.
North Carolina craft beer brewers are headed to court claiming that state laws limiting how much of their own products they may sell are unconstitutional and preserved by political cronyism. 2 Charlotte craft brewers sued the state today after their efforts to change the law were sidelined in the General Assembly. Brewers can sell 25,000 barrels on their own before they must sign a long-term distribution contract with a wholesaler. Small brewers wanted that limit raised to 200,000 barrels a year.
Next, Scott takes a look at your Monday night forecast. Stay close. Great forecast. I love it. Beach weather.
That's right.
All right, so this is an interesting story. Follow me if you can. A man surprised his girlfriend with a proposal, right? But there was a whole nother surprise. One, she'd been wearing it around her neck for over a year and had no idea about. So for their 1-year anniversary, an Australian man made a necklace for his girlfriend for a year and a half. She wore it every day. Then while they were visiting a cave in Scotland, he took the necklace, broke it open, and revealed an engagement ring that had been inside for the entire year and a half. The cave where they proposed is also named for the word Norse for hiding place, which is interesting. But so it's kind of cool. It's like he knew when he met her that she was the one. How cool is that? Yeah. What would he have done if
we
she...
got to step up our game, huh?
Oh, yeah. See you at 7.